This right here is the most underrated piece of equipment that I've come across in all the years that I've been drawing. And for all of you who practice pen and ink drawing, I must say that if you are inking using just a bunch of fine liners like the microns and the like, you must try a dip pen because it is game changing. And yes, the only downside to getting a dip pen is it can be really messy working with ink, but if you can get past that, then you don't have to purchase, let's say, 20 different pens when you can just have one and a set of nibs maybe, which can give you all the line variation that you want. But anyways, today we'll be inking this sketch of Itachi, and I'll sort of show you my inking process. I always recommend having some kind of paper handy to avoid smudges. I'm using the Nikko G-nib for this illustration. So yeah, let's get started. So my favorite thing about using the dip pens for inking is the fact that you can get so much line variation that it adds almost a character to your lines, which you would never get if you were to just use regular pens or fine liners for that matter. And you really want some character in your lines because it helps your entire drawing to come to life, and just it adds a completely different flavor to your drawing, which you would never get by using fine liners, because fine liners are designed mostly for architectural drawings where every single line needs to be of the same thickness, and they're not really that great at drawing at producing curved lines with variable thickness, if you know what I mean. Like the type of lines you can see here when I add tones to the drawing by hatching. Not to mention that it is so much more satisfying to hatch with a dip pen, and just to draw lines with a dip pen, it is much more satisfying than using any other type of pen, which you would only know if you have used one. I think that it could be a bit difficult to find the right kind of dip pens at regular art stores, so mostly I would suggest to purchase them online, and I will leave the links in the description for the nib holder and the set of nibs which I'm using in this video. But it is important for you to decide what kind of nibs to use for your drawing. For example, I think it would have been better if I used a different nib for this drawing, because it has a lot of curved lines, and the nib I'm using is like a mapping nib, which is mostly really good at drawing straight lines like a fine liner, except for the fact that you still get a lot of line variation because it's a dip pen. I think that people don't use dip pens as much for the main reason that you have to deal with ink, and it can be really messy, but I think in the case of dip pens, the benefits far outweigh the negatives when it comes to the final result you're able to get. And especially if you're drawing over a pencil sketch like I am doing in this video, it's much better to use a dip pen, because after you've erased the pencil lines, you don't have to go over any of the lines, because you would not get any fading effect which you get when using fine liners. And regardless of what kind of ink you use, the final lines are always much bolder and darker than any type of pen or fine liner or marker even. And that's because you have really generous ink flow through a metal nib than you would with any other kind of pen, except maybe fountain pens. Some of them have really good ink flow, so you can get similar results with a fountain pen, but you would not get the line variation which you can get with a dip pen. And I found that it is really easy for me to even draw with a dip pen if I don't have a pencil sketch underneath. I can't really say the same thing about fine liners because it's really uncomfortable to draw with a fine liner directly onto the paper. Not to mention that it is much more time consuming, and using a dip pen just allows you to draw faster, like much faster compared to a micron pen. This drawing really took me only 30 minutes, but if I would have used a different pen, I think it would have taken me at least twice as long. Another thing to keep in mind while using a dip pen is you might want to rotate your paper a lot, which I'm not doing in this video, but I would suggest that you do that if you're just starting out, because you need to maintain a certain angle with the dip pen on the paper in order to get proper lines. It just requires a certain level of discipline to use dip pens, I guess, and it's really helpful to have that discipline as an artist. So I would really recommend you at least give dip pens a try if you've never used one before, and then let me know if it worked for you, because it definitely has worked for me, and I've mostly been inking all my drawings with a dip pen ever since I used one. So I hope that also happens with you. And yeah, for this drawing I'm really almost finished with all of the inking or all of the line work, and now I will be adding some more tones to it. You can see I'm just using very light pressure to draw very fine lines with the dip pen, which is something you can only do with a dip pen. And yeah, so this is basically the final result. And this is the finished illustration after a bit more of inking and adding some tones. You can see we had some mishaps with the ink there, but apart from that, I'm fairly contented with how the final result came out. I used the Pentel pocket brush pen to ink all of the black parts of the illustration, and yeah, it looks pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and do subscribe because I will be uploading more videos in the future. And let me know if you have any ideas for future videos as well. So I'll see you guys in the next one.